Okay, hello. World War I and U.S. entry into the war and the end of the war. So we know World War I begins in 1914 with the alliance system basically springing its trap after the Archduke dies. Well, from 1914, remember when the war started, the people are enthusiastic. They believe the war is going to be this short war, it's going to be over by Christmas. Well, in 1915, Germany is beginning unrestricted sub-warfare. One thing we need to remember, Britain begins to blockade Germany. So they're cutting off supplies to Germany. And Britain is able to resupply itself because they're able to resupply themselves. And the reason that they are is the US is sending the Allies a lot of goods produced. So there is this inflow. So Germany goes and they announce that they are going to begin unrestricted subwarfare, which means they are not going to announce when they hit a person. They're also not going, they're not going to announce when they hit a person. They are also not a person, a ship, and they can target any ship, be it a military vessel, a merchant vessel, or a passenger vessel. So in May 7th, 1915, that's the next block, Germany sinks the Lusitania. So why is this such a big deal? Well, first of all, the passengers of the Lusitania should have known, they knew that this was a risk when they entered. But they believed, one, that Germany would not shoot down a passenger ship, and they also believed that the Lusitania would have some natural protections. So it is sunk by a German U-boat. The Germans say, well, it wasn't an innocent ship. One, we warned you. Two, it was claiming that they had weapons. 128 Americans died. At this point, because you have to remember at this point, the U.S. was actually, most of the population was supporting Germany in the war. When the Lusitania goes down, people begin to see Germany as the person to blame for this war. And Wilson tells the Germans that if they don't knock off unrestricted sub-warfare, then we are going to go to war with them. So they won't be just at war with Britain and France. Well, Germany realizes this is not what they want. So by 1915, they are ending the unrestricted sub-warfare. Say that is ending. So in 1917, however, between 1915 and 1917, the war drags on. You have the stalemate on the Western Front. You are having a little bit more success on the Eastern Front. But there is a chance that Germany, they're looking that Russia is weakening, and they also believe if they can blockade Britain, they can knock her out of the war. No more supply, no more buying weapons and goods from the United States. So they announced to the world that they are going to resume unrestricted sub-warfare. Well, what ends up happening is Germany sinks American ships in 1917. They're sinking they're sinking some naval ships, but mostly some merchant ships, about 4 of them. Then, so on top of that, you have the unrestricted sub-warfare. Then you have the Zimmermann telegram. And the Zimmermann telegram is a British intercepts this telegram from Germany. They intercept, and what it was this telegram or this letter where the German foreign minister goes to Mexico and says, Mexico, if you declare war on the U.S., what we will do is we will help you get those lands that the U.S. took back from you. So you're going to lose part of Texas, California, Nevada. Remember, the U.S. had a war with the Spanish-American War. Sorry, not the Spanish-American War, the Mexican-American War around the 1850s. Well, the U.S. is angry. One, Germany is interfering in their sphere of influence. Remember the Monroe Doctrine. Two, this is an act of war. But what the British do is they don't give the telegram to Wilson. They give it to the U.S. papers, and it is the U.S. papers that publish it. So Wilson now is under pressure. He has the Zimmerman telegram, and he has the sinking of American ships. So on April 2nd, 1917, the U.S. declares war on Germany. That is when Wilson, he goes to Congress, he asks Congress for the declaration of war, and he's going in that this is the war to end all wars. That is his purpose. So, a couple things to remember. We didn't enter the war because the Lusitania was sunk. The Lusitania is sunk in 1915. We enter the war in 1917. Woodrow Wilson is the President of the United States. Kaiser Wilhelm is the Kaiser of Germany, so he's the leader of Germany during the war. We're going to meet David Lloyd George, who is going to be the Prime Minister of Germany, and George Clemenceau, who is the leader of France, and don't forget Tsar Nicholas II of Russia, who is going to be overthrown in 1917. One key fact to also remember, this part here about the U.S. strong economic ties with the Allied powers, that's going to play a role in the U.S. staying back in World War II. But they had those ties, and had the Allies lost the war, it would have hurt the American economy. So if you turn your note page over, we're going to get to the end of the war. So in March 1917, Russia, there are two revolutions, but the first one is March 1917, the March Revolution, where Nicholas II is overthrown. What ends up happening is there is a food riot in Petrograd, St. Petersburg, which is at that point the capital of Russia. So he has that he has to deal with. Then he has the army is refusing to fight. Well, then you have another revolution in October, which brings the communists. And the communists are going to sign the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, which will officially pull Russia out of the war. So as the Americans are entering the war, because remember, America declares war in 1917, and they're coming in just as Russia's leaving the war. And remember, Germany's fighting a two-front war. Now all of a sudden they're going to be able to take their troops from the Eastern Front and move them all to the Western Front as a result of Germany leaving the war. As a result of Russia collapsing and leading the war. So the idea is, let's hurry up and defeat Britain and France and the Allies before the U.S. gets fully mobilized, and therefore we will be able to defeat. But what else is going on? Well, Russia is collapsing. Your central powers are collapsing also. First of all, you have what happens in May of 1918 is Germany, now free, throws every single troop it has into the Western Front. It throws every troop, all the artillery, basically everything they have except the kitchen sink. And for the first time in 4 years, they get that Western Front to move. And they come within 40 miles of Paris. People are leaving Paris. They come within 40 miles of Paris. At that point, the Allies, the British, the French, and now the American troops stop the German advance. At that point, the German troops are done. We've done this. They feel defeated. On top of that, the Germans in 1918 also lose their allies. The Ottoman Turks surrender. Austria-Hungary is in a revolution. They are not fighting anymore. November 9th, 1918, the Kaiser is forced to abdicate. Abdicate means giving up the throne. He does this because one of the things with the peace plan is the Allies are not going to make peace with the German Kaiser in power. And on November 11th, 1918, the armistice is signed. Not the peace treaty, The armistice, there is harsh conditions, but on the 11th hour of the 11th month of the 11th day, the armistice, the agreement to stop fighting, the guns go silent. So what are the results of this war? You've been at war for 4 years. First of all, you have, as we've talked about, your first industrial war, where you're taking all this power of industrialization and putting it into the war. It becomes a total war. You have civilians in the factories working to produce the weapons that will be used at the front. Remember, you have the global war. The colonies are supplying resources and men. Over 9 million people will have died. And remember, this is part of this is you have like the Armenian genocide that happens. You have these people going, why did we fight for this? Remember, civilians become targets in this war. The cost of the war is so astronomical that it's going to actually cause economic problems 10 years down the road. Europe is going to be left unstable. America is going to enter this war. They are now the power, but they're not going to help Europe, which is going to cause this instability. You have your first communist revolution, which that brings a fear around the world. Also, you're going to get the Treaty of Versailles that will blame Germany, that will actually be the cause of the next war because people are so angry. You'll have new nations created in Europe. You're getting your Yugoslavia, you're getting Romania is expanding, Bulgaria is expanding. Austria becomes its own country. Hungary becomes its own country. You're getting Lithuania, Latvia, you're getting Poland, all these new countries. The one thing that the Europeans are going to try and do, especially the Allies, is keep their empires. And this is going to cause a lot of problems because the colonies believed by supporting the mother countries, supporting the Europeans, they would bring independence, and this does not happen. So the seeds of World War II are already emerging as soon as the war